Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us here and online. And the first topic is preliminary results of Ukrainian World Congress Mission's media monitoring on parliamentary elections in Ukraine. Our guest is Eugene Czolij, head of the Ukrainian World Congress International Observation Mission to Ukraine's 2019 elections. Welcome. Dear guests, my name is Eugene Czolij, and I am the head of the Ukrainian World Congress International Observation Mission to Ukraine's 2019 elections, or UWC Mission. I have the pleasure to present to you the preliminary observations on media monitoring of the UWC Mission. The UWC is the international coordinating body for Ukrainian communities in the diaspora, representing the interests of over 20 million Ukrainians. The UWC has a network of member organizations and ties with Ukrainians in over 60 countries. Founded in 1967, the UWC was recognized in 2003 by the United Nations Economic and Social Council as a non-governmental organization with a special consultative status, and obtained in 2018 participatory status as an international non-governmental organization with the Council of Europe. On the 11th of July 2019, the Prosecutor General of the Russian Federation declared the UWC to be an undesirable organization that constitutes a threat to the constitutional order and security of the Russian Federation. Since 1999, the UWC has deployed election observation missions to monitor all presidential and parliamentary elections in Ukraine. The UWC mission is the fourth largest international observation mission to the parliamentary elections in Ukraine, after the observation missions of the Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, the European Network of Election Monitoring Organizations, or INEMO, and Canada. The Central Election Commission of Ukraine, or CEC, registered 142 short-term observers with the UWC mission, who came from 30 countries. The UWC mission has also closely cooperated with the observation mission of its member organization, Ukrainian Congress Committee of America, or UCCA, which registered 32 STOs. Together, the UWC and UCCA missions registered 174 STOs with the CEC. The UWC mission has also mobilized 125 long-term observers from 28 countries, namely Australia, Argentina, Azerbaijan, Belgium, Brazil, Canada, Croatia, Czech Republic, France, Germany, Greece, Estonia, Italy, Kazakhstan, Latvia, Lebanon, Mozambique, Moldova, Poland, Portugal, Serbia, Slovakia, Spain, Switzerland, Ukraine, United Arab Emirates, United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, United States of America. The UWC long-term observation is unique, since our observers are monitoring media in their countries of residence for potential disinformation. The UWC LTOs will do media monitoring in 20 languages for any evidence of disinformation. namely Arabic, Azeri, Bosnian, Czech, Dutch, English, Estonian, French, German, Greek, Italian, Kazakh, Latvian, Polish, Portuguese, Russian, Serbian, Slovak, Spanish, and Ukrainian. The UWC LTOs completed online training on the specifics of the media environment during the election period and on submitting online reports. The online reporting system was developed in partnership with Sterling Business School and in consultation with representatives of Stop Fake and Kiev-Mohyla Academy School of Journalism. The long-term media monitoring of the UWC mission regarding the parliamentary elections has been realized at distance and in stages. The UWC LTOs fill out online reports when they find articles that seek to discredit or tarnish either the electoral process in Ukraine in general or a specific party or candidate in particular. Next, the monitoring team then systemizes and analyzes the reports and makes conclusions accordingly. The main geopolitical goals of Russian disinformation around the world include blurring the lines between fact and fiction, creating confusion and doubt, and instilling in the audience a belief that the truth does not exist. Disinformation campaigns in traditional and social media are often tailored to sow discord in society, accentuate divisions between certain groups, or fabricate controversies where they have not existed previously. In many places around the world, Russian disinformation has attempted to portray international institutions and various countries as hopeless, ineffectual, dishonest, or corrupt, with the goal of weakening them to further the geographical and imperial aims of the Russian Federation. On the 3rd of November 2015, former U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of State Benjamin Czolij testified as follows before the Subcommittee on Europe and Regional Security Cooperation of the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee. The quote, "The Kremlin sponsors these efforts with a sophisticated $1.4 billion a year propaganda apparatus at home and abroad, which claims to reach 600 million people across 130 countries in 30 languages. The Russian government also funds think tanks and outside organizations in its neighboring states to help achieve its goals of promoting the Kremlin's false narratives, portraying the West as a threat, and undermining trust in independent media, as well as Western institutions and values." This is the end of the quote. In the case of Ukraine, disinformation has been and remains an integral part of Russian hybrid warfare, which includes the military, economic, cyber, and information components. The ultimate goal of Russian hybrid warfare, including disinformation, is to weaken Ukraine in order to return it to the Russian sphere of influence and dominance. Effectively drawing on its international and multilingual network of diaspora communities, the UWC Mission has detected numerous examples of Russian disinformation about Ukraine and its electoral processes in the foreign media. The UWC Mission has noted various disinformation narratives during Ukraine's parliamentary election, which have been disseminated in various languages through traditional and social media outside of Ukraine. The target audience has been the international community with different degrees of involvement with Ukraine. Some of the narratives uncovered by the LTOs of the UWC mission at the time of writing the preliminary observations include the following. On the 7th of June 2019, the website Mediapart published in English, and on 8th of June 2019, the Agora Vogue site reposted in French an article entitled "Do French Taxpayers Sponsor the Ukrainian Conflict?", which states, this is the quote, "All these events are causing more and more protest by ordinary French taxpayers who ask whether France is financing the Ukrainian war in the Donbas and outright anti-Russian propaganda." End of quote. This article insinuates that it is Ukraine that is waging war against the Russian Federation in the Donbas and spreading anti-Russian propaganda, and the French taxpayers are financing such efforts. So this is clear disinformation. On the 14th of June 2019, the online newspaper Le Monité published in French an article. It was called "Ukraine, Zelensky and After." This is end of quote, which states the following, citation, "The euphoria of the overwhelming victory of the novice Zelensky should not overshadow the emergence of a nationalist, anti-Russian and xenophobic extreme right, which served the post-Maidan Ukrainian power. Thus, the most disturbing phenomenon is the rise of neo-Nazi radical ideologies in the heart of a former communist state. The lessons of history have not been retained." End of quote. This article repeats the traditional false accusation that the governing authorities of Ukraine are radical and xenophobic. On the 4th of July 2019, the Agora Vogue site published in French an article entitled "The Collapse of Power in Ukraine Has Begun," which states the following. The devaluation of the presidential power further accelerates disintegration of the Ukrainian state. If the president is considered a puppet, there will be commotion and disintegration. And this agitation takes shape in the battles around the composition of the Verkhovna Rada. In Ukraine, the oligarchs who, through the president, already have contractual relations with each other and with foreign heads of state, are governing more and more openly. Ukraine, which previously had no sovereignty, is now openly transformed into a fuzzy territory. whose mandate is exercised by outside actors, and it is they who determine whether or not to start disintegration of the territory of Ukraine. End of quote. This article attempts not only to belittle the presidential power and the new composition of the Verkhovna Rada, but also to portray Ukraine once again as a corrupt and failed state. On the 22nd of July, commenting on an interview with a political scientist on Russia 24 TV channel, the English language website Fortress calls Ukraine, quote, a playground for political experiments, claiming that Ukraine's, I quote, senior partners in Washington determine the brink of what is possible, huddling in Ukrainian political characters in the special corridor of possibility. This makes it difficult, if not impossible, to stay in line with the promised election slogans during their campaigns. End of quote. This article continues to disinform that Ukraine is not a sovereign country, but simply a political experiment of Washington. And on the 22nd of July this year, news website Regnum published in Russian an article entitled "The Rada elections have been called the most closed in history," which quotes a Russian official as saying that the elections to the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine on the 21st of July were the most closed ones in the entire history of the Republic. Then he continues, I quote, "Judging by the number of violations, the 21st of July procedures cannot be called election." End of quote. This article accentuates that the violations on the 21st of July 2019 were so severe that one cannot even call Ukraine's parliamentary election an election. In sharp contrast to the above-mentioned narratives, the preliminary assessments by reputable international observation missions, including the ODIHR, OCNM, Canada, NDI, and the European Parliament, have unequivocally signaled that Ukraine conducted a fully democratic election. For example, I quote OSCE, Ukraine's early parliamentary elections were efficiently run and respected fundamental freedoms. Anymore, elections were held in a competitive and generally peaceful environment, despite tight deadlines and remaining shortcomings in the legislation. Election administration functioned in an overall transparent and efficient manner. Canada. Ukrainians have affirmed their commitment to democratic development by electing a new parliament in an election that largely met international democratic standards. NDI. For the third time in 4 months, Ukraine held democratic elections. Despite war and punishing timeline, government officials, election administrators, political parties, candidates, election observers, and citizens collectively delivered an election that complied with Ukraine's laws, meets international standards, and reflects the will of voters. This is a remarkable achievement. The European Parliament election observation delegation to Ukraine, I quote, "One can undoubtedly say that the elections, were competitive, well administered, and managed in an efficient way." End of quote. On the basis of LTO media monitoring and analysis, the UWC Mission affirms the existence of widespread disinformation about the parliamentary election and Ukraine in general. The UWC Mission sincerely thanks all its long-term observers, as well as all experts and analysts with whom it has cooperated in collecting and analyzing this information narratives. The UWC Mission will present all its findings with respect to media monitoring in its final report in 8 weeks after the conclusion of the parliamentary election. Thank you very much for your attention, and now I'm ready to answer your questions. Andrei Megel, Info Agency. Thank you for your good work. Do you have close cooperation with the Ministry of Information Policy, because they have to reveal these threats, but they are mainly focused on the Russian direction. Do you cooperate with other organizations in Ukraine? Thank you for your question. In our final report after presidential elections, we presented it 1 week ago here. We provided a number of recommendations, including we called on the cooperation with governmental structures, civil society, media experts, and Ukrainian World Diaspora, headed by the Ukrainian World Congress, and Western nations who are interested to provide true information about events in Ukraine. And we called them all to cooperation to efficiently fight Russian disinformation and any other disinformation. Yesterday I had a meeting with the representatives of the Office of the President, and they voiced their interest in cooperation with us in this respect. Do you have any other question? If there are no questions, we thank you all. Thank you.